All right, so today we have our first ever podcast titled Life Through the Eyes of Agnostics in Mormon Society, featuring my friends Griffin
Hello.
and Lennon.
Hey,
I wanted to have this conversation with you guys because we talked about this a little bit before when I visited in Utah and a little bit online. We talked about like the cultural and the social weight that the Church of Latter-day Saints has on the population and on like you guys, your families, whatnot, our friend group. And I wanted to go into that a little bit more. But first, I wanted to start with you guys. Like, how did you guys first start out with Mormon and the religion and whatnot? What was your relationship with that?
Um, Lennon, do you want me to go first on this one?
go ahead, dude.
So, my parents are both LDS, so I was literally just born into it, which is a good classic way to get started here in Utah. You just get born into it, and then, so you just start going to church every week, and at 8 years old, you get baptized, and they just kind of try to set the hook early. That's how it feels, but
I know I can make that correlation to like Catholicism. We get baptized like really, really early. I think it's like a few months that we're born that we get baptized, and it's common also that you're just brought up into the religion. That's how my family was, so I can make that correlation with that. Lennon, you what was your
Um,
what was your start with it?
my little first taste of it was, our good boy Tanner,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have another cousin named Mitch, and they're both my age. And whenever I would want to spend the night at their place on the weekend, I'd always get sucked into, okay, if you want to stay Saturday night, then you got to go to church with us the next day, learn about God. And that was pretty much my first taste of it.
Okay, all right. Well, over time, I mean, that was obviously in the past, like a decade
Yeah.
plus, like in the past. What's your relationship with the religion today? Has it changed at all? For good, bad? What? How has that
Um,
changed?
my relationship with the religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as much of the religion as but the people who are in the religion, and how what they practice is not something they actually where they believe in it but they don't practice it. So I don't know if I'm wording this
No,
correctly,
no, no,
but
no. That makes absolute sense. Do you think that you could elaborate a little bit on that, or Griffin, if you could, or either one?
um, well, it's just like they preach acceptance a lot in the church. That's one of their main things, like love thy neighbor, and it sounds fine and dandy, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then they come out with rules like they just redacted this recently, which is funny. But they had a statement where LGBTQ like parents, like if they have a kid or adopt or whatever their situation is, their kid can't be baptized in the church just because of their situation.
Really?
And then they redacted it like months later. But it's interesting because God originally said, you know, gays can't have kids that are baptized, but then he changed his mind. So I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. I mean, I know in Catholicism, one thing is what like the golden rule is often quoted: treat others how you want to be treated. I'm not sure if that's the same in like Mormon society or in the religion. I think it is because I know
They
you guys.
preach it,
Yeah, they preach it, but they don't practice it. And yeah,
do
and
as I
that's not
say, not
everybody.
as
Like
I
some
do.
people do practice
Mhm.
it, like, but a lot of people don't.
Can you like perfect? So it sounds like you have specific times or like occurrences. Like I know it might happen all the time, but like, are there a few instances or issues that like really spoke out to you guys, like as you were growing up, or just recently, which caused you
So
to like move away from like the culture of the religion and the religion itself?
this isn't necessarily my experience. This is my dad's, but this story actually kind of goes along with what we were just talking about. So when my dad was about our age, just actually probably a little bit younger, right before being a teenager, um, him and his younger brother were really good friends, and then they have another friend who is the same age as them, and they would hang out all the time. And then one day, their mom decided that you aren't allowed to hang out with my son unless you start going to church.
I remember you told me this
And
story, yeah. But please continue. I just remember
and
this.
my dad's little brother decided, okay, I still want to be friends, so I'm gonna go to church. So my dad's younger brother and their friend continued to hang out, but my dad wasn't interested in going to the church or doing that. But because he didn't go to church, he was no longer allowed to play with his friend. And then his little brother would always be hanging out with him, so he pretty much just lost two friends right there, just because he wouldn't go to church.
But I understand that this is your dad's story, and I do remember you hearing that. Has that ever happened with you specifically? Like, if that you were making friends at school and like a kid learned that you weren't Mormon or whatnot, and that like they kind of like started to distance themselves from you? Has that like ever happened to you specifically?
It's not that like it's been like directly said like I don't want to be hanging out with you or around you because you're not LDS, but it's more like in schools there would almost be like the little cliques of like Mormon people, the LDS people. Like they wouldn't say anything, but they would always low key be rude and judgy, and you could tell they just you're not following what I'm doing, so like you're kind of weird, and we don't like that.
And at some point in school in Utah, I don't know if this is like in other places, but people ask if you're like Mormon here. Like that's a big thing. Like when you first, like maybe not necessarily for me, but like a lot of people ask if you're Mormon when they meet you.
True. That's like just the big number one check.
No,
like they just can't figure it out.
My name is so and so. What's your name? And then like, okay, cool. Are you Mormon?
I know for me, when like the both times that I've come out, that has occurred up in conversation. Like when I was waiting in the airport to leave the first time that I came out to go back home, I was sitting there waiting, and I was just like, just talking with this person. We went to the same restaurant, and they're just like, oh, like, so are you on mission right now? I know like this is a topic that we'll get into. Like, are you on mission right now? Are you a Mormon? And I said, oh no, I'm agnostic. I don't practice any religious beliefs. And that was like literally just train wreck. The conversation was over. He just started eating his food, and I was like kind of like caught back, and like I tried to say I'm sorry if I offended you. Do you want me to leave you alone? And he's just like, oh no, it's fine, it's just whatever. And he just kept eating, and I was just like, oh, like we had a few solid minutes of solid conversation, and it kind of just dissolved very rapidly. But yeah, I know I've had that instance. Griffin, have you had any instances that like have like really just like stuck out in your mind, like any issues or happenstances that really just caught out, like that was just like, yeah, like hell no, you know what I mean?
For me, it was just more like personal experiences that kind of pushed me away. Like, for example, there's seminary here for school. Do they have seminary?
They like Sunday school. Or Catholic school, like is it Sunday school? Is seminary on Sunday?
So seminary is during the school day, and there's a little mini church literally built on school grounds.
Okay.
And it's a class period that you can choose, and you don't get credits because obviously that would be ridiculous. Why would you get credits? But a lot of parents will make their kids take this class. So I had a full schedule at one point in high school. And I was already taking a bunch of required classes I needed to graduate. And then my parents were like, well, you still need to take early morning seminary. So what that would mean would be 5:30 a.m. for me, and then like basically going to school to like read scriptures. Okay. I was like, well, I already don't believe in this. I don't want to do this. Like, and it was a really big deal for them. Like I could tell that was like a big setback, like in their mind for me.
Did you ever
when I stopped going to seminary?
Oh, okay, so like I was about to ask, did you like ever stop, or did you ever like push back against that? Like, I was a little curious. And how did your parents react when you like started pushing back against it? Because I'm a little interested in that. If it's too personal, I understand, but
no, it's good. So first, they just started like, well, this is our house, our rules, which I get it, but they just started like pulling my privileges. Like, okay, you're not going to go to church. You can't drive the car that we own.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So eventually, when I got my own cars, when I actually stopped participating in LDS activities for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So up until then, my parents had a certain amount of leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget about the internet.
Yeah, that'd be a good thing, like no church, playing video games or something, but
Mm-hmm. So like those are issues and whatnot that have happened in like the past. Is there anything recently that's happened with you guys? Like I don't want to say like in your more adult life, but like working, has there ever been any like social stigma behind people, just like like figuring out that you're, not Mormon, or that, like, for example, that maybe you didn't go on mission or something like that? Has anything happened to you guys in like your more recent years, like the past 2-3 years?
I don't know about Lennon, but honestly, the people that I've chosen to associate with in the past few years, for the most part, have like nothing to do with the church, or and they
Mm-hmm.
don't care about stuff like that. They just care about like me as a person. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah, dude. Just I'll kind of add on to that, like how Griffin was commenting that everyone just asks, like it's almost like one of the first things they ask is, "Are you Mormon?" Like how that is almost like how you answer that is very important to them,
Like
and
that's their first
determines
impression.
and that determines what their first opinion of you is, rather than, hey, let's just talk to this guy, fill him out, see if they're actually decent people, and boom. Like how that guy just stopped a conversation with you because you didn't say you
Mm-hmm.
practiced anything. Like that's so dumb.
I mean, I don't want to. I don't. Part of the reason why I'm also having this conversation with you guys is because I know for me, it's like I've had a few brush ups with like a few bad brush ups with people, and like who follow the religions. I've had some good ones as well, but I just wanted to get more of a feel because you guys like, live there every day. So yeah, that's true. So you guys, you guys associate yourself with friends that do like look at you and that care about you rather than care about like necessarily your beliefs as a whole, or like if you're not subscribed to the same thing that they are. Do you have friends that are in the church that that fall into that category though, like that do care about you and that like don't like, oh, you're not a part of the church, whatever?
You know who I would love to say is probably one of the best examples of an LDS member that is accepting of everyone? Bo
Bo
Kodo Draco.
Kodo Draco. Okay, so but he's one of our friends that we talk to online, just to elaborate. But yeah, Bo, all right.
That guy, he doesn't care who you are, where you come from. If you're a good person and you show him respect, he'll give it back to you.
Okay.
And that's how it should be, but unfortunately, most members do not follow those rules. Or even not even necessarily rules, but just basic human interactions that you would think would be so simple, but get so blinded by their religion.
Is there any other examples? Like any other friends that might be in the church that that stick out to you, that like I'm like trying to see if there are exceptions to the rule. Like Bo obviously is one of them. Are there any others of your friends that happen to be exceptions, or is it just like the one?
I think not necessarily friends, but Christians' parents,
Mm-hmm.
I think, are some fairly good people
Mm-hmm.
to set as an example of how people should act, because they all, every time without a doubt, they have their house open to whomever and whenever.
I know this to be true because when I visited, they've let me stay at their house both times that I went out and visited. Yeah,
they'll always feed you. Like they're always kind to you and nice, and yeah, I think those guys are a pretty good example of how it should be as well.
Mm-hmm. Griffin, I know you and Lennon are very close and have like a close friend group. Is there anyone that anyone else like that maybe you just like you know or something? Any friends that maybe I don't know that like Lennon might not know that fell into this category?
The interesting is like I actually have quite a few friendships like from church,
Mm-hmm.
specifically like friends I met inside church, like Kyle and Christian. I met them at church.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my friends that I grew up LDS with are no longer part of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would actually say that's the majority of my friends at this point. And then I have a few friends where it's like it almost felt like and like the relationship became awkward because it's like they went on a mission, now they're back, and we just live in two different worlds now. Like being
Per-
LDS and non-LDS is like day and night. Like it's not.
It's a lifestyle.
Perfect. This is actually segments perfectly into my next question. Is there anything like any actions, any beliefs, any events that causes you guys to change the way that you act around friends or to change the friendship entirely? So like your point with a mission that one of your friend left on mission, which for the audience for people that don't know, a mission is when if correct me if I'm wrong, is when someone reaches the age of 18, they go 18, correct?
Yeah.
All right. They go on a mission that is chosen by the church, where they go to a place. So, like, where is Jam? Jam being one of our friends, he's on mission right now. Where is Jam
I
placed?
think he's in Oakland.
He's in Oakland.
I don't think he's in Oakland anymore because he came back from that one, and I think he got put on a new one.
Okay. Yeah. So he's
But somewhere in California.
all right. So he's somewhere in California. So like. They put you anywhere all over the world, like, and I believe Kodo, Bo, who we mentioned earlier, he's going to Africa for his mission, correct? Or is that for a trip?
Bo's going
Wait,
on
I
a
didn't
mission?
realize that he had.
Okay, so that's something he's going to Africa. I don't know if it's for his mission or not, but that's been a thing.
I don't
that
think.
he's
I
talked
actually
about.
think that's for something with school.
Okay,
possibly.
okay, all right. That's
Wait,
that's
I
my
think he's
apologies.
doing study abroad.
Okay, yeah. That's my bad. But the point standing is that
good.
missions, yeah. The missions bring you all over the world, like anywhere, and on mission, like you teach the local, like you help the locals out, like you spread the word of the church and whatnot, and like you learn a bit of the culture while teaching a bit of the local culture about your religion. Essentially, I think that's my full understanding of it. And
Yeah, that's all fine and dandy too, but they also have like a very strict lifestyle for you to live. Like they set your bedtime, like when you're gonna eat, when you're gonna do your laundry. Like the church will just set out your life for you, and you are required to follow it to the T.
mhm. Do you think that this like that there's a social stigma around this, like about kids like having to go on mission if they're in the church, or that when kids come back that like something changes them? Like what's like your synopsis about missions overall, basically?
I think missions is always just like the end goal, like what they're training you for, like throughout all your childhood. Like even me, I never had the intention of going on a mission, but I can tell you, even though I wasn't an active member, the pressure was still there because I have Tanner's family, my cousin, who would always hang out with, and then my other cousin Mitch and his family. And when my dad was an alcoholic, I was spending a lot of time with those families, and they would help us out. And then they're like, okay, well, you're going to be going to church a lot, and then guess what? You're going to be a great mission, Lennon. You're going to be a great missionary. Just the pressure was still there.
And like, would you say like so you'd say that like that pressure obviously is a negative, or like?
Oh yeah.
Do you think
Like
do you think it
me,
changes?
I was so grateful for them,
Mhm.
and then they were so excited. They're like, Lennon, you're just gonna love going on a mission. It's like almost like I'm disappointing them in a sense. It's like, I'm sorry, that's just not what I want to do.
Do you think that that pressure changes the way that your friends act just in general? Like before or afterwards, that pressure of like that weight of the importance of a mission, as you said, preparing them to be missionaries?
Are you asking if it like changes people like
Like,
before
yeah,
they like leave?
like, yeah, does it change the way that they act before or afterwards or during the mission? Do you think that like pressure gets to them? Let's
I think it does, because it's almost like they're about to go on this. This is where they can't mess up. Like, this is where they got to be completely devoted to what they're doing. And a good example is our good buddy Jam. Like, I think right before he went on his mission, you know how Jam was. He's a
Yep.
goofball. He'd play games. And then, like, 2 weeks before his mission, he just flipped his lifestyle completely. Just
yeah,
a
no,
complete 180, and just focused on what he was about to do. Which there's nothing wrong with, but that's just the best way I can explain.
yeah. No, it's what happened. You can't really, you're telling what actually happened with that. Yeah, no, I can recall that as well. Like, going out to visit him was great, but then like, and we talk all the time, and then the 2 weeks came and it was just gone in the wind, and I was like, oh wow, okay, but that is what it's not a bad thing. But it does affect them and it does change them. Do you guys happen to know, or Griffin, do you have a point to make on this?
I was just gonna say with that whole Jam thing, like I've always just wondered, because I love that kid so much, but his family is just a very, very intense like Mormon family. Like everybody has done, everybody's gone on a mission before him. I think even his sister did, which isn't even required. So it's just like that's just literally ingrained.
Are
in
there
their family.
differences in
I just
requirements?
wonder how it would be different if maybe it wasn't ingrained in his family so much and it was more up to him. But that being said, like I don't want to disrespect what he's doing at all. Like if that's what he feels he needs to be doing, But
wait, so
I just think it's interesting. Like there's such a pressure to do it, and then at some point it just becomes okay. I'm gonna do it just because, and you start building your life around that.
Here, I have another good story about this. My friend,
can I just ask one question before the story happens? So there's requirements for a mission. Like,
there's very strict requirements actually.
Can we go into that? Like, at Lennon, I don't want you to forget your story, but I didn't know that there was requirements, so I think elaborating on that might be a little bit better for a bit, and then we can get back to your story, if that's okay.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
Like, right. I particularly don't know a lot of the requirements, but I just know, like, your appearance is, you have to have a very clean, short haircut. And Griffin can probably carry it on a little bit more, because that's about as far as my knowledge takes me when it comes to how you should be.
Well, as far as like religious requirements, like what they ask of you, they want abstinence, they want drug-free, they want you to be paying 10% of your income to the church as tithing. That's a requirement. They want you to be regularly going to their temples to worship. You have to be a regular churchgoer. If you are inactive in church, that can disqualify you. You need to be there every Sunday. Trying to think. Do you know like what the priesthood is? So the church has like a power that they bestow upon you when you become 12. It's called the priesthood, and there's a whole set of requirements that you need to be worthy to hold this power.
Okay. I did not know about this. Priesthood is different in Catholicism, so please elaborate a little bit on it.
So, what they like practice with the priesthood is like they give people blessings, I guess, with it, and they say it's like a power. But
is it required for you to be a member of the priesthood to go on mission?
Yeah. So once you turn 12. You will instantly, like, go talk to your bishop, which is like the leader of your ward or like area of your church, and you'll talk to your bishop, and he'll ask you very personal questions to figure out if you're worthy, and then they'll go from there. If you're not worthy, they expect you to like confess your sins, and I know a lot of other religions have that, but it's like
Yeah, reconciliation. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like sometimes it's pretty awkward if you think about it. It's like at times you'll be like a 12-year-old kid, and then you'll just have literally some random 50-year-old dude just asking you super personal questions.
No, I can understand how that can be awkward. So, is there requirements versus boy and girls? If boys have to go, or if girls have to go, or if both have to go, like
So boys are expected to go, and females actually have a really interesting, like, almost like submissive role in the church, where there's like, I don't know. It's really interesting how women are in the church here, because like they can't hold the priesthood. That's not allowed, and like in the temples, there's like only certain things they're allowed to do. But I don't really know a lot about temple like practices.
Okay. All right. Could you elaborate a little bit more on how they're submissive? Like, so for example, in Catholicism, women also can't they can't be a priest. They can't be a deacon, I believe. Like, they can't really go up that way. Like, the most they can be is like a sister figure, I think. Like, is like the most that they can get in the religious hierarchy. Like,
so like the church, when there's a hierarchy, like you say, and they only appoint certain people to these roles, and they're never females because they're literally not allowed to in the church. Like, they're the only appointed officials within the LDS church that are held by women are like, I want to say like Relief Society president, and that's basically what they just call like their class that they go to in church, Relief Society. And like another interesting thing is like until the 80s, blacks weren't allowed to hold the priesthood.
Until the 80s?
Yeah, until the 80s.
So, all right. Wow. Okay, so that's like after Jim Crow. That's like after that whole thing boiled out. That's like a while afterwards. I believe
like
Jim Crow
that was like
in the 50s.
and 60s.
Yeah.
When the rest of the country kind of figured it out.
Yeah. I would look in. I'm gonna take your word for it. Like, I'm not like saying that you're wrong, but like
I actually know a lot about that. Like in the 80s is when the first blacks were allowed to hold the priesthood. Like they weren't allowed to at all.
Oh my. Okay. Well, that's rather interesting. Is there and I know you mentioned the change earlier with like LGBT families and their children not being able to be brought into the church and baptized because they were part of that, but that recently was just changed back. So that's interesting. I wonder what other changes that they've made kind of like that, like either like, I don't know, delayed to the rest of the U.S. or it's just, that's like interesting to think about. Lennon, please go back into your story. We had a little bit on the requirements and whatnot.
So this story kind of falls under the pressure of a mission. And this is a kid that I've grown pretty close to recently in the past, and he's just a good kid. So he was born in a very Mormon household, and his 3 older siblings all had gone on a mission, and even his younger sibling had gone on a mission. So of course he went on one, and he didn't exactly do the things he's supposed to do out there, because he didn't go necessarily for him, but for his family and for his neighborhood and his what is it called? What is it, Griff? What is it called? Just the group that goes to church with you.
Your ward.
Your ward, yeah.
Can you maybe just a little explanation of a ward is, because that is not terminology that is found elsewhere. That is
So a ward is just basically like a neighborhood area, and like that's a certain like few blocks will attend the same church. Because out here in Utah, you have to keep in mind that like half our population or something is Mormon or so like 30% of those people maybe are going to church every Sunday. So a lot of our population goes to church. We have churches on every corner, down every street. And then a ward is just like kind of the areas around the church, and they'll attend the church together. And
so
they
like
do
their
lots
community.
of activities together. It's just like, your fellow worshipers, your friends and neighbors, that type of thing.
Okay, all right. So that's like the community per church. All right, I
Yeah.
understand. Lennon, please continue. I'm sorry.
All right, so no, it's all good. So he went out on his mission, and it probably had been a year. And man, this is truly awful. So what he ended up doing is he didn't want to tell his family he didn't want to be out there anymore. He didn't want to tell his mission president. He didn't want to come back with the title of not completing his mission because he didn't want to. He didn't want people to know, and his people in his ward or family to know that he didn't want to be on a mission and doing that for the church.
Mm-hmm.
And that mental strain pushed him so far, he literally broke his own ankle on purpose so he could come back on medical leave and be done with his mission. And I asked him why he would do that and just not say he just wants to come home. And his answer, it's not going to be exact, but the sum of it was because I didn't want to let people down. Can you imagine feeling that much?
That's heavy, dude.
Pressure, dude.
No, that I do have to agree. That's pretty heavy, and
getting to the point where you have to physically break your own foot so you don't have to tell people this isn't what I want to do.
A follow-up question to that though is do you know if they asked him to go back on mission after that, after his healing process and everything?
I think he damaged himself enough to the point where by the time he was healed up, his mission was over.
Okay, so all right, that's pretty heavy. Okay, yeah. Has like I don't really even that really just catches me off guard. I'm sorry. Wow. All right.
And I didn't even I spared you the details. Like just hearing enough of that is cringe.
That's pretty just heavy in of itself.
Dude, that kind of reminds me, like, I don't want to speak on it too much, but just how Jam came back because he obviously felt he wasn't ready to be out on his mission yet because he wasn't worthy or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he had something he wanted to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like seeing that kind of pressure, like making him feel bad, just fucking makes me feel bad, dude. Like,
yeah,
my friend is stressing over
something people
his worthiness. Like, Jesus. Bro.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that? Like, you both talked at the same time, so I kind of like I'm sorry.
It just like breaks my heart to have like seeing my friend stressing over like his worthiness and like what it does to like his social status, like with his family. Like I know why it stresses him out, but
Lennon, what did you say?
Realistically, everyone by the Book of Mormon, everyone should be like worthy, right? But that's like not like actually how they practice it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go watch this rated R movie that swears. That's bad. Drink caffeine. Bad. Don't do this. Don't do that. Bad.
Problem with like addictions and whatnot, like addictive substances, like so alcohol is also included, but I know caffeine is and a few other things as well. Energy drinks, aren't energy drinks under that too?
Yeah, no coffee, no energy drinks, nothing like that.
They're caffeinated, yeah. So going back to topic, going a little bit, it's going back to another question. Do you have disagreements between your friends that are religious, not necessarily about religious things though? So like, for example, like, do you guys have like social disagreements with them? Do you have like cultural disagreements with them? Like, are there times where like they say you should do this, but like it's like you feel like it's coming from a place of their religious beliefs rather than, you know, their own, I guess you would say. Are there any like distinct differences in that?
Like, instead of them saying something because they care about you, it's like it's maybe just because of their religion.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, along those lines.
I'm trying to think. I really don't associate with a lot of church members, which sounds crazy because there's so many in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that actually. Just to touch on another point, it does like affect socially how I move, because like if somebody's part of the church, that instantly is just like such a turn off to me. I'm just like, well,
That yeah,
don't really want to deal with it.
It's
that's
just like,
interesting. So like it kind of is a two-way street almost. Like if they notice that you're not a part of the church, they like branch off. Well, most people branch off and like are just like don't associate with you. But that also seems to be like, as from what you just said, that seems to be a thing on your end as well, where it's just like, all right, like I'm gonna just take a step back from this because I don't have to deal with it. That's like kind of what you just said, right?
Yeah,
I feel like it's not as much as on our end as on theirs, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like how that question, "Are you a Mormon?" pops up all the time. Um, fuck, what was I gonna say?
So, like, you feel like it's charged more one way than
Like,
the
okay,
other.
so
Okay.
just the pressure. I don't know, just how most interactions with people and how they make their judgments on you by what you do rather than who you are. Because I have no issues making friends with people who have their own beliefs, and as long as they don't affect me, and like you can still respect me as a human for what I do and see I'm a good person, then I'll give it back to you. But for the most part, like Griffin's right, like just we don't associate with those people just because most of the time those people won't even give us a chance just because of what we do.
Okay. All right. All right. That's a good elaboration on it. Do you think that do you think there's a
Like,
possibility that like even though it is true that the stigma is more pointed towards you guys with you guys not being Mormon, so it's like more pointed against you. Do you think that there's missed opportunities that you could have with friendships? Because like we do have friends like Jam, who's an amazing person. I love the Jambino Meister. I love him to death. Bo, he's another friend. Like, do you think that there might be some missed opportunities by having that, like that sort of stance with it? Because I can get where you're coming from. I'm just like saying, do you
like
think there's a
missed
possibility?
opportunities, like having stronger friendships because of not, like,
N-
if we were with the
No,
church.
no, 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 no. Like missed opportunities, like you might like this person may be a part of the church, but they could be a good friend. Like they could be one of the exceptions. Do you ever think like that could be a possibility?
I
I
sometimes think about like situations like that, and I do think that there's a lot of missed opportunities. And the reason being is like I feel like being part of the LDS Church really makes you a closed-minded person, because they feed you the answers for everything, but really the answers are just a whole bunch of nothing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like they literally accept it for everything. And I've met some of the most closed-minded people that I've ever encountered in the LDS Church, and it's spooky.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. That's that was one of the big points that I was looking forward to getting to, but you guys just knocked it out right there. Excellent. Um, are there some standards that are set by the church that even though you're not a part of the church, it still affects your life? Like, so are there things that the church says and does that affect like society as a whole in Utah or in your area?
you heard of Prop 2?
Prop two. I
Okay,
haven't.
so in our state, they're trying to legalize medical marijuana right now, and our first, or
Mm-hmm.
I guess not our first proposition, our second proposition for it was, once it got passed, our legislator is like 70% LDS or something,
Mm-hmm.
and they just like, the second the medical bill passed, they just changed it instantly and just like made it useless,
We'll talk
irrelevant.
about the message that they released, that they strongly uh, recommend how their followers' votes go.
Yeah, so whenever there's a vote in Utah, the church will always release a statement a few weeks before or whatever saying their opinion on it, which
Mm-hmm.
is really fucked because they shouldn't be doing that. But, and then all representatives are LDS, and everybody that goes to vote and is LDS, so just, ugh.
So
They
like
can literally make
the
our
church
laws here.
the church you all right, so the church uses its platform as being such a big power and such like a commanding force in the state to platform its own political views and say like, hey, like it's kind of like a wink wink nudge nudge, like, hey,
Yes.
followers of the church, this is what we believe, nudge nudge, like trying to push them into that
Yes,
direction.
exactly.
It's literally a meme here, though. Like, everybody knows that our laws and everything, it's all controlled by the church. Everybody knows it, and it's just a meme.
So I know in the founding of this nation of America, there like in multiple different places it stated that there's going to be a separation of church and state. Do you think that is followed in Utah? Like that there is
No.
a church? No, that the church like
Well, the church
heavily
doesn't have to pay
influences, huh?
taxes to the state at all. They don't have to pay taxes, so
Mhm.
there's that separation. But when it comes to the actual laws and stuff, no, they
Church does what they
make their
want.
opinion known, and they make sure that their sway
And you
ends
say
up
that like
being in the laws.
you say that something like 70% of the legislation writers are LDS.
That could be inaccurate, but I want to think I'm pretty sure it's as high as
It's
that.
like they have a commanding force. Okay.
Yeah.
So there isn't directly a mix between the religious hierarchy, so like the prophet or like the board. I know there's like a few different other things that are like build the church, like the prophet and whatnot. They don't directly mix with like the laws, the legislator writers, whatnot. But there's a lot of like, I don't want to say under the table, but there's a lot of like strings being pulled with like social and cultural power, where like where they say
'Cause
stuff.
you have to keep
and
in
whatnot.
mind, like, these politicians, like, that are LDS, if they say something that's against the church, they will be kicked out of the church immediately. And, like their social status in our state will just, like, basically go to shit if they consider being Mormon what they want to do.
Do you know if that's happened before? If like people have been kicked out, like people in higher up
Oh, yeah.
positions?
There's been many, like, bishops, maybe not necessarily higher up positions, but I'm sure there are cases of that.
So like
But somebody
bishops
will
are like
speak out against-
decently high up on the food chain though, on like the hierarchy, right? Like 'cause,
Yeah,
like,
so a bishop is a leader of a ward, essentially, which is a lot of people. It's like over 1,000 people a lot of times.
mhm.
So
Okay.
then a bishop would be like an appointed leader of that.
So they're definitely like they're close to the community because like they're like the community figurehead, but they're not like they're not like as we said, they're not like the prophet. They're not like a leader of like a whole collection of wards. They're just a leader of one ward. Okay.
Like when the church released the statement that they wouldn't let same-sex couples have children get baptized,
Mhm.
there were some bishops that spoke out against that, like basically just saying like you're spreading hate and like this isn't what it's about.
Mhm.
And they were excommunicated from the church like pretty quick.
So like excommunicated as in they didn't just get like the title of bishop stripped from them, like they were
Their
wholeheartedly.
entire membership is like stripped. They're going to hell according to the church.
Oh,
Like,
wow. Was there a membership reinstated after they made the change back? Do you know?
I didn't follow it that closely, but I can't imagine that any of those bishops would even want to go back. But that's just me.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it makes sense, but like once you're a part of that community for so long, maybe like you're looking for any reason to go back.
Once you're a part of the community for so long, just this is another good way to look at it. Like you said yourself, they're a bishop, so they worked their way up, dude. Like they've been a part of that for so long, and then they share their opinion, and just like that, after them giving their whole life dedicated to living the LDS lifestyle, and without a second thought, they kick them because they didn't share the same opinion as them.
Oh,
Pretty
yeah.
much.
So is like the membership that they have though, is that like is that a tangible thing? Is there like cards that prove that you're a member? Like, or is it just like it, like how do they recognize that you're excommunicated from the church? So like if you walk into a church, like do people?
So
like,
the church
there
has
a
an
list of-
office building
Okay.
down in Salt Lake, and they keep track of the record of all the members.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so basically, everybody on record are the people that you'll be, or I guess we won't be seeing them, but they'll be the people in heaven.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We as in members, not of like people
As
that aren't part
filthy
of the
sinners
church.
just
Yeah.
living in this world.
Okay. So we answered a little bit of two questions here that affect us like you guys personally, like laws and rules. Well, not laws, but like rules and societal influence that affect you guys, but also affects like the state of Utah and the
Yeah.
society as a whole. Um, are there any other points that you think that that you didn't get a chance to elaborate on, or like something that you think I'm missing that you guys want to talk about here, or um, something you want to elaborate a little bit more on?
Hmm.
Mm, let's see.
Like so for example, like what might be some remedies that you might think that could handle the social stigma? Like what are some positive changes that you think could be made to make society in Utah a little bit more accepting of those not a part of the religion? Do you think that'll ever happen? Stuff like that.
I think what it's going to come down to is just the fact that the religion is no longer. I think they just recently became no longer a majority in the state. So like 48% of the state or something is Mormon, something like that. So I think just slowly having
The
less and
tides
less
are
as they
turning.
become a minority, they will learn how to be more or exist better or more peacefully. I don't know.
How to coexist with other
It's
people.
really easy when you're the majority to just not give a shit about other people, but when you
When you're
become a
not, yeah,
minority, maybe it's a little bit different.
you have to make more compromises and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't get everything that you want. Do you think the church is dying down in numbers as a total, or do you think that they're
Yeah,
moving to other places?
I think they're
Uh,
dying.
well, the fact that they had do so much of that missionary work, they are always growing a lot, actually. But they had 200,000 people remove their records from the church last year. So they lose. I mean, they lose a lot of people, but they just take on so many more new people.
200,000 people removed. Do you think that's through, like we were talking about excommunication? Do you think that's through that, or do you think that's through people like actually, ceasing their tithing and withdrawing from the
Excommunication
church?
is like a pretty, I would say, somewhat rare. Like they don't do it a lot necessarily, but they do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just people just leaving and wanting their records removed.
Hmm.
Like 95% of that, I'd say.
I feel that it needs to be not such an obligation, like not such a pressure. Like I understand. So starting as a young kid, like you're too young to stay home alone, so you gotta go with the parents. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But once it gets to the point where you can start taking care of yourself and understand what religion is and if it's for you, I think at that point it is completely up to you whether you want to go along with that lifestyle or not,
Mm-hmm.
and not just be completely shunned away if you like. That's another thing too. Like if you're growing up in the church and that's how Griffin said, like that's how he met Kyle and Christian, and just making those friends through the church. And then when you get to the point where you realize like, hey, this is like, I'm not that interested in this stuff anymore, but then you have all your friends there that are still going with that, and it's like almost rough because it's like, well, I don't believe in this anymore, but they do, but now it's just never going to be the same between us.
So, like, do you think it's almost like a wall literally builds up between you guys after that happens, or like figuratively speaking?
It's in a sense there's a wall. It's just sometimes it just, I can't honestly completely speak through this because I have never been dedicated to the church.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Griffin can talk a little bit more about this than me.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I just my like kind of overall thoughts on the church because I was just kind of reading this last question, Sam, and thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I like how they give people like I don't know. Some people need somebody to give them a set of morals, and they need that guidance in their life, and
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. And I understand like some of the things they're teaching are really just positive things, like treat people well, take care of yourself, take care of your body, live the best life you can live, and I like that statement. And I have nothing against the church, but it's just, it almost feels like they just look down on us for not living a certain type of way, even though I don't necessarily look down on them for living a certain type of
Yeah.
way.
There's like condemnation, like they condemn you for not being their standard.
It's just annoying feeling like even now I always joke about it, like, oh, I'm just a sinner, because really in Utah, like, I am just a sinner to these people. It's just the church is fine. It's just I wish they were as accepting of us as we were of them, maybe.
Yeah, like there's a little bit more compatibility, I suppose. Compromise, like
Because like when
between
people
the
listen
groups,
to
yeah.
this like recording or whatever, I don't want you to think that I'm like necessarily talking down on the church because I said a lot of negative things, but that's just really how they make me feel about them. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not. I agree completely. Just I don't have anything against the religion itself. If you want to believe that and that's what you do, good for you. But my issue is the people who practice this religion, and how Griffin was saying it's like live your life the best, treat people good, be nice. Like all they live this lifestyle and they preach it so much to other people, but then like half the time they can't even follow the own things they preach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I get so turned around by them. Or it's not the religion, but the people themselves.
And I know people who are non-LDS that follow their set of morals or guidelines on how you should treat people and be a good person 100 times better than they do.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's what religion is, just like being a good person. Like, I don't know.
I was gonna make the point when we were like a little bit earlier. It ties kind of all this together. Was I feel like the pressure that is given onto just like people as a whole in the church is because it's so, I don't want to say hereditary, but in a way it is. Like you are born into a family that is religious. That family puts a lot of pressure on you to be religious. So you, they set the train tracks and you follow the train to wherever it goes, and even if it's to a train wreck. But, you keep following on it, and it gets to a point where it's just like, oh, now I have kids. Now they have to go, not like they have to go through what I went through, but, like, I have to make sure that they're good like I was and, like, be a good person in society. Like, it's so robotic, it's so mechanical, it's like each individual isn't finding their own tie to the church. Each individual isn't finding their own path or like their own way to God. It's more of like, this is my life, this is what my family wants, this is how I've been essentially programmed, and this is how I will move forward, and I will carry that programming to my children. I feel like there's, and I feel
that
like
was so accurate. That was a really good description, Sam.
Well, I see the connection with Catholicism as well. Like people don't, like some of the people, well, I don't even want to say some, but the majority of the people in the religion, and I will uphold to this, haven't read the Bible themselves. Like they go to Sunday, they get their readings and whatnot, and they listen to the readings from the Bible, but they don't sit down themselves, read the Bible, and just think about it thoroughly, or just like think about their own, how does this reflect in my relationship with God? And I think it's that disconnect. Like, I'm not even trying to promote religion. I just think that if more people did that, I think more people that are religious would be a lot more, like, for example, Mormons would be a lot more accepting, a lot more peaceful, and you wouldn't get stories like a kid breaking his own ankle to just escape from the pressure. You know what I mean? Like, that's like my
that shit
viewpoint on
actually
that.
breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrible to hear that. Yeah, and it's like I have heard the story before, but it's like unbelievably true, and it's like unbelievable how it shouldn't be true.
Oh yeah,
but
like
it is.
I know that guy too. Like I've had the conversation with him. It's a crazy story, but that's happened.
All right. If anyone else, do you guys have any more points to make? Anything that you want to elaborate on, or? Are you feeling pretty good with, like, everything that you said? Was there anything that you wanted to clarify or change, or?
I don't know. If I had to touch on one more thing, it's just like closed-mindedness. Isn't that crazy, guys? Like like religion is literally just like a set of answers to like the universe if you really look at it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just too easy. Like, how do you guys feel about that? Like, just
I
accepting
actually,
religion
I
as
was
like
just
a final
thinking,
answer.
I think the closed-mindedness is definitely like a thing. I feel like it almost like makes you just have tunnel vision. Like, this is the only way you can see it. Don't even consider looking at it any other way. Because if you do, then you're going to hell, dude. Like, that's a sin.
I've experienced it through a different religion, through Catholicism. But yes, I am completely aware of that, and I think it's part and parcel with their own downfall, with like the individual's downfall, because as I said before, it's just robotic, and it's like any adverse opinion or statement brought up against it is like horrifying. So for example, like horrifying to them, they don't know how to react, or like they have like already pre-made excuses as to why that might, like, that can't be true. Not like, it's not like,
Exactly.
you ask,
it's an answer for everything.
yeah, you ask them like, well, what about, like, there's always changes. Every single church, every single religion has made changes. Like, not like, maybe not to their like their core book or whatnot, but what it means, the interpretation. They always change the interpretation. They always change like the societal legislature that they themselves write for their church members. They change that, like, just like they changed that. It was 1978 when the first black person was raised in the priesthood. I quickly looked it up on my phone. And
1978.
yeah, and then they made the recent change, and then they changed back with the LGBT community, where the LGBT community couldn't baptize their kids, and then they were allowed to again. Like, they make those changes, but it's so much more of like, it takes them so long to make that connection, to make that change, that each individual in that society doesn't make those, like, they don't cognitively think about that. It's more of just like, oh, the church says it's okay, so it's okay. Like, their opinion changes when the church's opinion changes, and it's just like they don't
Exactly.
look into it
I wish
themselves.
people would just make their own opinions and just
I feel like
not let people tell them how they should feel.
how I was like talking about tunnel vision, I feel like they miss out like actually on so many good opportunities in life to like have such a good experience, but just because there's some part of that experience that isn't okayed by how they're expected to live, that they won't go out and live that experience, and they really miss like actually growing on as a person because they're just so set in their ways and will not open up and try new things or anything.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that can just be shown, for example, with who they interact with. They normally, because there are exceptions, there are always exceptions, they normally only interact with other Mormons. From my experience, from what I'm hearing from you guys, like, they literally close themselves off to the people that they hang out with. So yeah, that's like, just even if that example, that shows to be true.
Yeah, the church will try to, like, especially for kids, like, they'll make sure that you have enough Mormon activities to go to, like, enough Mormon kids that you won't need to associate with other kids necessarily. Like, I don't know, like, that's not what they're promoting, but, like, they make it very easy for you to just have a bunch of Mormon friends, I feel.
It's like they obviously have like a roped-in fence where they can corral people into, almost. I don't want to say it so heinously, because it's like, I don't want it to seem like they're manipulative, but in a way they kind of they know what they're doing. They know how to pin other kids with other Mormon kids and to keep them together. Yeah. No, I understand that. All right, well, I think we've hit every point and more that I wanted to talk about, and we are just encroaching on the hour mark. If there's anything else that you guys want to say, please do so. But otherwise, I think it'd be a good time to wrap up.
All right, I feel like I've been like, I've probably seemed like low-key toxic about the church, and honestly, I'm not trying to be negative about it, because all in all, that's just how people choose to live, and if that's how they want to live their life, then that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But Crap. I can't remember where I was leading with this. God damn it.
You didn't want to seem to be toxic, and that you're not like downplaying the church. If that's the way that they want to live their life, that's fine. But
It honestly it really bums me out because I know there's a lot of good people in the church, but because of how they are with it now, it just almost seems impossible to have some relationships with people. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
all right, Griffin, you have anything else to say?
Other than the fact that I guess we didn't really touch on this, like when you're looking for like people to like date and stuff, like that also has to come into play. Like these people want to get married in the temple, like, and like 50% of the women out here are Mormon, you know? So like
Yeah.
half of them don't want to date you instantly if you're not Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
So I just like that.
I mean, yeah, there's other stigmas with that as well. Like I've had friends that have dated guys for months. Like I have a Mormon friend who dated a guy for a few months, and then broke up with him, started dating with another guy, and I think they were dating for 6 months, and then they got engaged and married. So I know that the marriage thing in Mormon culture also is definitely.
And it's funny how many Mormons get married in like 2 months after they meet each other. And then
just it's interesting. And yeah, like we can definitely talk about this more afterwards, but I appreciate
that's a good spot to leave it.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys coming on. Everyone, Lennon and Griffin, thank you guys so much for coming on, speaking your thoughts, and walking me through this, because I mean, as someone that comes from the Northeast, I don't live in Utah. I've only visited it a few times for like 2 weeks total. So I very much so appreciate this chance for you guys to really elaborate on everything and really, paint a really concise picture about everything that's going on and whatnot. So thank you guys.
Thank you for having us and asking us, and I look forward to seeing what your next podcast has to say. Are you doing it with Sam and Christian?
I'm doing it with
Sam and Christian, Nathan and Christian.
The next podcast will be Nathan and Christian, and it will be It'd be life through the eyes of followers in Mormon society, people that follow the Mormon belief and their own viewpoints on it. So, all right, thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.